Hey guys, welcome to our 3:30 panel, Women in Creative panel. I'm your host, Sebastian.
Boiler.
And your boy Tone from across the hall.
Now, here in Beyond, we want to bring you some titans in the creative industry. These women have built their businesses, they are titans, they're rock stars. You got to get your lighters out and light them up for them because, again, they have excelled in everything that they have done and they continue to pave the way and build a huge and create a big impact in the industry. The first lady that we want to bring up, she is actually the founder of Women in Comics. She gives a voice. I've seen her at many different conventions. She has a great lineup of books. I want to give it up to Regine Sawyer. Hi, Regine.
Hi, Regine.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Thank you again for joining us here at the 2020 Virtual Con at Imbion. We are excited to learn your backstory and everything. And again, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
The next titan in this industry, because again, all these ladies are titans. She has over 45 years of experience. She built a business with her late husband, Tommy Castillo, rest in peace. She is, again, a rock star when you see her. She's awesome to talk to. She does some great drawing sessions that you can see her do live every Wednesday. And you can also catch her live on Sundays and This Week in Pop Culture. Give it up for the one, the only, Sammy Castillo.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey,
How's
Sammy.
everyone?
How's everything, Sammy?
Good. Hurricanes have missed me because I live in Florida, so it's
Yes.
a reasonably sunny day. And so pardon the brightness because there's like feet of sun today.
You need
I'll have
time.
half a face.
All good. All good.
The next titan that we want to bring up in this industry, she has done it all. She has been a playwright. She has also worked on a audio podcast that's going into its season 2, which dabs into horror. So if you love horror, she loves to give you that read right there. Give it up to Larice. Larice S. Arte. Sorry. Stumbled there. Hey, Larice.
Hey, Larice.
Hello.
Hello.
How
to
are
meet
you
you all.
doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're
Good.
doing good.
Good.
We're happy to have you here.
You guys
Happy.
don't look like you've been running on fumes since 6 a.m.
What? Who's
No one runs on
grabbing
fumes.
coffee?
And
What's the
Lots
matter
of
for you?
espresso between them.
they're actually brother and sister. So siblings, we love them. If my brother's watching, I love him too. Anyway, the next titan in this industry, she's been working in the industry since the 90s, worked with Milestone Comics as a colorist, but she is also a self-publisher. Self-publishes her own brand, her own books. I want to give it up to Micheline Hess. Give it up.
Hello. Hello.
Hello,
Micheline.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So guys, before we get into the questions and everything, everyone who is watching this panel, I want you to see this panel. These women are titans in the industry. They have paved the way. They've made names. And again, they are making some great stuff. We're going to have all their links up in the Facebook groups, the and Beyond page. I'm sorry, guys. I'm fumbling words.
They're everywhere.
I'm just the
Links-
excitement is here
links
because
in
this is a really fun
description,
panel.
Links on the page, links on the website, links everywhere, links for days.
Oh yeah, but let's get into the first question. So, pretty much, this first question is: what is your origin story? How long have you been in the creative field, and what first inspired you to get in this field? And we're going to start with Miss Kaylin.
Micheline.
Micheline, I'm sorry.
Wow. Okay. So I may need some prompts along the way because I've forgotten already the last of your questions. But my origin story is basically that when I graduated from college, I had no idea what I was going to do. I always loved comics since my father put me onto them as a kid. And I used to follow my brother and go to this store, Yo Te Amo, on the corner. We were in Flatbush, and we'd get comics in the candy store, which was really cool. And I would get like Casper, Archie, stuff like that. And I enjoyed them, but I never really saw characters that resembled myself, my brother, or Black people in general, or at least certainly not in a complimentary way. Fast forward to graduating from college, and I still had no idea what I was doing. And ultimately, I ended up in retail. Yay! My mother was crazy about that. And so I was working at a museum gift shop in Soho, and I found out that there was a Milestone looking for artists and colorists. And so I quit my job on the spot. I don't recommend doing that. And I went home and I compiled a portfolio and I made an appointment with them and was just very persistent.
Oh, you quit before you even like.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't recommend
That's
it.
such a boss move, bro. I respect it.
Thank you. But then Milestone kind of shut down, but now it's back. But then it shut down. And I didn't know where I was going. So I actually ended up right back behind the same cash register at the same store in Soho a little over a year later after I left. And the store doors were like, oh, welcome home, Micheline. We knew you'd be back. And there was actually a trip to Japan that made me realize I could actually fight for something better. And ultimately, I started getting new media jobs when I came back to New York. And I ended up trying out for Nickelodeon, getting a job there. And when I was working there, and that was like around 2008, I finally decided that I was going to try and go for making comics because I didn't want to be years down the line and be like, well, I could have been a great comic artist. You know, that's nice, Miss S. So that's when I started drawing and creating my stories. And it started out really small. And I had many adventures since then. And now I have Malice in Ovenland. I have Malice in Ovenland Reader. I have the Island Cats of Pungaree. I have Diary of a Mad Black Werewolf. And more on the way. You know, and even thinking about branching out into animation. I've been experimenting a lot with doing virtual reality art lately. And since I finally beefed up my system and went to the dark side, I'm actually able to do a lot more now. So I really can't hate. It's elevated me. So yeah, that's my origin story up to now.
Awesome. Sammy, you're next.
Okay. So I have been, to correct what you said before, I have not been in the industry individually for 46 years. I look really good if I am. I've been in the industry for about 20. And then my late husband was in the industry for 30. So combined, we're over 45 years. But I started I went to school for video game design. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to make video games. Awesome. And I went to school and I did it. And then I got my first video game job and I hated it. It was so boring. I got to sit behind a desk in a cave-like room, clicking vertices forever, dealing with a-holes. So I got rid of that job. Actually, I was fired because I called my boss an a-hole. So tip, don't call your boss an a-hole. Let him keep it down.
I love this panel already. Everything you guys are giving is giving me life.
So after that wonderful, display of early 20s, attitude, I actually went into museum reproductions, and I worked at a print shop because of my digital background. And I photographed and reproduced original paintings for private people, and then museum all over the world for reproductions and stuff. So, sheet clays and stuff like that when you go into a museum or gallery. And that was cool for a while. And I met my late husband, Tommy, about 10 or 11 years ago now, and I started out as his studio assistant because I wanted to draw comics. I was always a comic fan and wanted to be an illustrator, and he was classically trained, and he was a student of Frank Frazetta's, and I was a fan of his from the early 90s. I had some of his first books, so I geeked out at him, I shouted at him, and long story short, we got married. And we built Tommy Castillo Studios over the last 10 years. Ultimately, he passed away in 2017 because of complications of diabetes. But I kind of came out as a dark horse because I was running the business. I was, being an agent, sales, all the back end stuff. So I wasn't really doing a ton of my own artwork at the time. And when he passed and I kind of came out as an artist, people were really confused because I'm coming out as like a 20 plus year veteran drawing stuff, and nobody had any idea. So, we're work-wise, the studio's in over 400 different publications. Just to name a few, we've got we did Batman for 9 years, Potex with George Romero, Green Arrow, Spawn, Spider-Man, Savage Dragon, Evil Looney, Tales from the Crypt, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We worked with Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons. And if you are artists, we are on all Green Recycled Strathmore sketchbooks and all of their 500 series Bristols. So we are everywhere. That is the long and the short of it.
Now, before we get on to our next panelist, one of our panelists has just came into the room. Want to give it up for the multi-talented Jackie.
Hi.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Hello.
And Jackie
I
is
had some technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No worries.
Jackie is calling us from the east, from the West Coast, originally from the east. So we will get to Jackie, and I'll repeat the question when we get to you, Jackie, which is
No
good.
problem.
Commander panel. Next, we want to go down the list with the same question. Regine, you are up.
Unmute myself.
It's okay.
I started publishing comics about 14 years ago. I'd always been a comic book fan. I love comics. I'm an avid collector of comics, of comic book cards, and it's just something that always stayed with me as a young kid. I was an avid writer. I love writing comic books. Well, not just comic book stories, but any type of stories. Prose, short stories, you name it. Throughout high school, that's all I did was write essays and short stories because I was trying to get money for college. So there was a point where I was like busting out a story like every week for about 4 months. So I was always in that creative mindset. Around the time where I was about 17 years old, I was creating some characters that I really were passionate about, and I was doing research on comic book characters, not just for the mainstream, but from manga. So I happened to be in a library, and I was just looking through some of the manga, just seeing what was coming out, and I came across a story that was really hyper violent towards women. Like it was just about 30 pages worth of violence.
Ooh.
And it was really jarring to me. I was just like, is this what it is? Is this how people see us as women? We're just somebody's victim, and we're just supposed to take it? Like, what is this? So from there, I just said, well, we need something different. I'm already working on this story. Let me just continue doing that and have something that me and my friends can read and enjoy. So about 10 years later, literally probably about 10 years later, maybe it was 11, I published my first comic, which is The Rippers. And that's what I was working on in high school. And since then, it's been sort of a nonstop organic process. So from starting Lock It Down Productions, and that was in, I think, late 2007, as I was working on my books, fast forward to 2012, where we had the first Women in Comics panel. I was invited to the Bronx Heroes Comic Con by Ray Felix, who's the organizer. And he asked me to moderate this panel. I'm like, I've never moderated a panel before. You sure you want me? And he said, no, you'd be great. I'm like, okay. So we had about 8 women on panel, and they all happened to be women of color. And it was really sort of a really touching experience for the audience because they had never seen women of color working in the comic book industry. And we had several that were veterans and who had been making books for years. One of those veterans was Aletha E. Martinez, who is the first woman of color across the board to have lead books, be the lead artist at Marvel and DC. She's the very, very first. So, and she lived right here in New York. And I remember talking to her after, and her saying like, oh, I don't get invited to things like this. I don't get invited to panels and such. No one really wants to hear me speak. And I said, well, I want to hear you speak.
Yeah.
And it hurt me, it really hurt me. And so I said, well, we got to do something else. So like maybe we'll do some other panels. So from there, as I said, it kind of touched the audience. So there were a few people in the audience that were like, oh, can you do panels at our location? Or can you maybe we can set something up in the future? So from there, starting with those first 8 women, we're now 150 members plus worldwide. We do workshops, panel discussions, art shows. Micheline is one of our members, one of our longtime members. We have our own convention that we partnered with Ray Felix of Bronx Heroes with Women in Comics Con that we have annually. This year was supposed to be our 6th annual show. So yeah, I'm out here just doing it, taking one day at a time. There's always more work to do. And we just relaunched the membership and the website. And yeah, that's it.
Listen,
There's other stuff, but that's it for now.
and guys, I just shared that link in the chat. I'll be sharing everybody's links throughout the chat. So next, we're going to go down the list. Laurice, give us your origin story. You're next.
Hi. So my origin story. Long, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a baby laughed for the first time, and it was a fairy, and it was me. That's it. That's my origin story. No, I feel like out the womb, I was doing art. My brother and I, Lawrence and I, were both poets at one point. And I feel like we have these cycles that we go through, right? As artists, right? We're not just a painter or just a comic artist. There's never a just when it comes to artists. And that's really how I've always felt. This summer I was into drawing a lot. And this October, I'm going to get back into season 2 of my podcast. So last year I decided I do have an award-nominated play. I'm a playwright. I'm a writer. I'm a poet. I'm an artist. I'm a visual artist. But I got into sound and sound editing. And I really found that with sound editing, I feel like I could do it all day. I can edit sound all day. I love Logic Pro. It's just like my favorite thing. So last year I discovered, with the help of my brother Lawrence, that I could do my own podcast. He actually inspired me. He had his own podcast called Tales by Law, and it was really fascinating. And then I started listening to horror podcasts because I like scary movies and scary stories. And I started getting into these horror podcasts. And I realized all of these podcasts, most of them are men. And most of them are white men. Most of them are, if they're women, they're white women. And I didn't hear my voice. As a woman of color, as a Latina, I didn't hear my voice at all. And I know in the Caribbean, we have stories. We got stories for days when it comes to scary stories, ghost stories, horror stories, witch stories, bruja stories. All those kinds of stories need to be told. Those stories have been told through generations of oral tradition. And I was sick of not hearing our voices. So last year in October, every week I put out one podcast. And when people they see artists and they always want something from them. When are you going to put the next one out? When are you going to do? I waited an entire year to decide to do season 2. It's okay, and that's the way that I feel about my art. I don't know when I'm going to write my next play. As soon as I was done with my play that got an award nomination, people were like, when's the next one? And it's like, when you have a baby, it's like, no, not even. When you get a boyfriend, they're like, when you getting married? When you get married, they're like, when you having a baby? And when you get a baby, they're going to ask, when you having another one? And that's how I feel as an artist. They always want something from us, right? But artistry is organic. And my artistry, I feel like, comes from a place of passion and love. I feel like everybody who is an artist can say the same, So I'm not going to do something that I'm not feeling, I wasn't feeling it the rest of the year. It's the spooky season coming now. As soon as, what is it? 2 days from now, it's going to be spooky season. My spooky season starts in September. I don't know about y'all, but spooky season starts in September for me. So for me, my origin story is that I came out the womb an artist. Whatever that means. I was beading at one point. I was sewing at another point. I created all my cosplays, outfits. Anything that you asked me to do, I could pretty much do. even if I didn't know how to do it, I custom cakes. Oh, wait till I tell you about my cakes. We'll get into it. But there's really nothing that
There's more.
and that's how I feel.
Modern day Renaissance women, people.
Seriously, like I feel like this is my calling, my purpose is just to be an artist, just to spread love, joy, and positivity, and all kinds of diverse voices. I also work with teens, and I encourage them to do the same.
Well, again, yeah, these are some.
Every round of applause, everybody.
You guys are giving me
I
some.
don't know, I just felt that.
Listen. We've had so far.
I feel like I'm standing in a room with giants right now. Like I'm
you're
looking at
all
you guys, and
giant.
I'm like, wow, you guys are amazing. You've done so much, you know.
Listen,
I went to her page before I got here, and I was like,
Jackie, you are next. So I'm gonna repeat the question for you: is what is your origin story? How long have you been in the creative field, and what inspired you?
Wow.
What first inspired you?
before I answer that question, what is the timing on the answer? Because it's such a hard question for me, because I'm just like you, Larice, with the multiple things. And full disclosure, the light is bothering my eyes because I'm still messed up, which is why I have these.
No worries.
I'm trying to be like, oh, I'm in LA. But I think I'm fancy and shit. I got here late. I was like, oh, what's up? Now my eyes are like bothering me. I'm going to try to answer that in short because I understand that this is a time panel.
No worries.
All of you don't know me, so it's hard for me to like give you a snack bite answer to this. But I was born into a family that's just a little bit chaotic, and I love them to death. But my way of dealing with stress and anything that came up that was like traumatic and stuff like that was art. So all my life I've been doing something that I deem art therapy now, because I didn't understand when I was a kid why I would just like go off to the side and start drawing and listening to music and writing to music and writing poems and doing stuff like that. So since I was at least able to walk and talk, anything that could be a distraction to me that was artistic was my thing. So drawing, I would say I was doing that from when I was like 5 or 6. I started painting in an art school when I was at, I don't know, like 3rd or 4th grade. My first painting, this is like my second painting. I don't know that you can see it. My light is
There we go.
getting
Wow,
crazy.
yeah.
But I made this at 8 or 9 years old about. I can't really
9
recall.
years old?
What?
Yeah. Yeah. Because the thing is that when someone tells me to do something, I'm very competitive. And my teacher was an older, mean man. My parents were like very supportive of whatever I wanted to do in terms of, if you don't bother us, we won't bother you. Right. So me drawing and painting and just like minding my business as a child worked out, because I had that art class was only like a month or so, and it was like once a week. But he said, oh, you know, this is a picture and I need you to draw it. So my ability is to look at something and recreate it. Not the traditional way where they tell you to use shapes and do things evenly. So it started there probably. And then growing up, I kept adding on to it, just like you, Larice. Like I have multiple things that I do, and I would make my own clothes. I would do a lot of stuff because I was just trying to keep myself away from becoming a statistic or away from becoming a problematic child. That's like the shortest way I could explain that. So now as an adult, I lost my father at 15. So I left high school and I got my GED, and I was already like going to college courses and stuff while my friends were still in school. At 21, I lost my mom. So like this whole time I've been working full time, and I'm like busy. I don't have time to paint. So you figure at some point in between that, I started doing graffiti, and like I was still drawing in my book and everything, but I started to do things that I shouldn't have been doing as a teenager. I ain't gonna lie, I was like 10 when I was doing graffiti. But you know, years and years and years later, fast forward to now, I would say I added all these different skills, but I didn't know how to turn them into a profession. So when I added these skills, I was like, all right, I'm busy. This is a professional hobby. I started to do radio. I started to do online radio that was live shows. And I was like, podcasting, what? No, I'm not going to pre-record. I need the interactions or it's weird. I feel like I'm talking to myself. I know you feel me on that. So, you know, it just became a thing where I'm like, all right, I am in front of the camera, then I'm behind the camera. I'm directing now. I'm doing film and photography. I'm doing literally everything. And there's no short answer to that question. Like my origin is trauma. My origin is deconstructing my trauma, which is the name of my art exhibit. So when I had an accident in 2013, I had spine surgery, and I don't think that you can see there, but like right about here, they went in to remove 2 parts of my spine and replace. And there's a metal plate and screws holding my spine together. Did my shoulder twice. So while I was home, I was like, all right, well, let me order some art supplies that as an adult I can afford now. Because when you're a teenager, you're like, I'm not doing all the things I love because I don't have the money or my parents are deceased. So like, how am I going to continue this passion? So I had a lot of drawings that I made out of like pigment markers and stuff like that, and pencil, pen. I was never paying attention in school, constantly drawing. Like, I'm going to be a cartoonist one day or an illustrator because I love like The Simpsons and stuff. So 20 years from the last time I painted that, when I showed you, I started to make stuff like that, like a little bit of a happy memory. But then this one, a little bit of a sad memory, but nobody would know that but me. To deal further with my trauma. To be like, all right, I went to the beach in the night to throw a seashell in the water for my mother because she loved the beach on her birthday. That garden is like, I took a walk with my sister because I felt able to do it. I'm putting on my glasses because the light's bothering me, sorry. So, but it's like, if I don't continue creating art and I don't continue doing photography and capturing stories as I go along to kind of like paint the picture of my life visually, and the book that I'm starting to do, which I have to also do as an audiobook, if I don't do all of this, I'll feel like I have done it for nothing. I secretly put on the glasses so I don't cry or make you cry.
That's good. Listen, I want to thank you guys.
Incredible.
It's a lot. So I don't know how to like give you a short answer to that, but that's like to loop you in. I'm in LA because I came to do a music video behind the scenes situation. And then I stood for a little bit longer. For those watching in New York, I'm sorry if you thought I was home yet. But I started to pick up a lot of stuff to do over here. And I created my own production set for some interviews and some photo shoots. I met some amazing models, some amazing people. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take that back to New York and bring all the three coasts together. So when you invited me onto this in Beyond Con, I was like, all right, yeah, that's dope. I want to bring, like, I'm over in LA and the people in LA that I met are watching this. The people I know from New York are watching this. My Atlanta people are watching this.
Thank you. Welcome,
Miami,
everybody.
Texas, like all these places. I should throw in there that in 2015, because of my radio life, I went with, I don't know if you're familiar with like Combat Jack, any of you. Combat Jack Show, he passed away now, but Combat Jack Show was a hip hop based podcast, and he's an entertainment attorney. So he would bring up like your most favorite artists up there to talk to them and bring you into their world. It's pretty cool. So his executive producer and I did radio together when I first started, and he gave me the opportunity, shout out to A-King, to go to A3C, which is a festival and conference, and capture people like 2 Chainz and Pharoah Monch and all the people that we may have grown up listening to. Because I don't know your taste in music, but like I'm a hip hop head. So that's amazing because I taught myself DSLR cameras for the first time during that event. Nobody knew. I was just out there shooting on auto. I was out there like, yeah, you don't know. And then learning the manipulations and acquiring more lenses and stuff as I went along. It was just supply and demand. Oh, you like my work? Now I need to up my equipment. If I can't afford it because I'm going through something, how will I do it? I'll just work 3 different gigs and reinvest that money into my brand and continue building maybe that JDM, Jackie the Model brand. So essentially everything that's art, media, and management, I do. I manage a music producer as well. Literally everything.
Awesome.
There's so much I'm probably forgetting to tell you, but I can't,
We're going to get into it because we got this whole panel. And again, every story that we've heard, you guys, again, these are giants in the industry. Law, I need you to lead in with the next question, please. You are up, brother.
I got like super goosebumps from all you guys. Like, this has been amazing. Next question would be, where do you guys find your inspiration for your art? And I would like to start with Rashid.
That's a good question. I mean, when it comes specifically to my books, it really has to do with probably my environment, like what's going on in the world, in my community, but also just around me in general. So when I mentioned The Whippers before, that book was created because one, that was a story that I was already kind of working on. But when I saw that manga, I mean, that was something that I just said, if I'm going to have a book with female protagonists and so forth, like this, like having gratuitous violence is not going to be the way that I write, and definitely not a tool that's going to be used to promote my book. So that was my first feeling about it. And then also, if you're familiar with the series at all, it's heavy science fiction. It's space. I find a lot of inspiration from the cosmos. Like literally, like astronomy was a big thing when I was a little girl. I loved the stars. I loved just space, planets, all of that, and that just translated into that series. And then as I moved along, I kind of just wanted to highlight more and more women of color, especially mothers or those who are in a motherly role. So that's where Ice Witch came to be. And Ice Witch is also in the same universe as the Rippers. So here's this bodacious, amazing Black woman who is deeply entrenched in space and deeply entrenched in the love of her child. And that's something that you didn't at the time. I think I created Ice Witch around the time, like about 2007-ish. And it just wasn't, you just didn't see things of that nature. You just didn't see some superhero woman or some kick-ass woman just running around doing her business, and part of her business was protecting her child. And then my last series, Eating Vampires, I'm a big vampire fan. I like a lot of folks are, but after a while, it gets a little bit redundant. You have the same mythos over and over and just continue to be recycled. So around the time that I created Eating Vampires, was I think Twilight movie had just come out. Vampire Diaries was out. I think some other series and stuff were out, and I just said, you know what? Let me see if I can take this oversaturated mythos and create something new out of it. So I started playing with the concept of having an apex predator for vampires, and started playing with words like vampire eating vampires, and it stuck. So with that said, just a lot of my inspiration does have to do with my environment as well as what I enjoy. And with all the subject matter, I get to sneak in just little things here and there, whether it's political, it's about socioeconomics, and it's not even purposely sneaking something in. It's what's affecting my people, it's what's affecting me. So it just naturally is woven throughout the story.
Dope. Thank you. Sammy.
So after 20 years of being asked this question in every interview, my inspiration.
You said 20 years?
Yes, I've been in the industry 20 years. My answer is food, rent, electric. That's my inspiration.
That's a good inspiration.
I love it.
Because of that, I am a working and in-demand illustrator across 4 or 5 different entertainment industries for major companies. There is no luxury of doing something for my inspiration. They give me money and I have a deadline and I do it. That's not to say that I don't do my own projects or that I don't love what I do, but this whole kind of artistic fantasy ideal of it's my inspiration, so I'm doing it. It doesn't, in my industry and what I do, there's no factor. If I am sick as a dog and I have 102 fever and I have to get that Batman painting out, I'm sitting at the table painting it, and it doesn't matter how much inspiration I have to do it. And, some people will say that that's a very jaded view, but after me being in the industry for so long, that's just how you stay in demand. There's no luxury of that. But on my personal projects, I will say, of course, a certain level of inspiration goes into it because, it's what inspires me to create my own properties and not necessarily draw 1,000 Batmans and Jokers and whatever. So my inspiration on my personal projects is I want to make you that little kid again. We as modern people tend to lose our inner child. And my favorite thing when people come up to my booth, and I don't know how many of you have seen my booth, it is a 15-foot by 20-foot monolith of art. And you walk up, and every single person that walks up to my booth turns into that 10-year-old kid with their action figures in the sandbox, smashing them together, making stories about G.I. Joe and the Xenomorph fighting. That wonderment, that childlike wonderment goes on their face. And that's when I know I did absolutely perfect. So that I would say is mostly my inspiration when it comes to my personal projects. would be to kind of reel in that childhood like wonder that we still have inside, but it's just buried way, way, way deep down underneath with adulting.
Definitely. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Larice.
So, as far as my writing goes, a lot of my inspiration comes from my own life, with some artistic license taken, or my own spirituality, or my journey of spirituality. I try to keep my writing inspirational, positive. I draw a lot of artistic empowerment from movies like The Fifth Element, Amélie, anything with Robin Williams for some reason, because he's amazing. But a lot of my writings tend to be more uplifting, a bit in your face about it too. But the play that I was nominated for an award for, it's called Broken Dolls and Robotic Hearts, and it's set in an Afro-futuristic setting, and that for me was one of my masterpieces. So for my writing, I tend to look at my life, look at the scope of work that I've done, look at what I'm not seeing. I tend to get frustrated with certain industries in mainstream industries, what is not highlighted. And when I get sick of seeing what's not highlighted that I want to see, I just create it myself. I'm sure that you can relate right here. I forget your name, I'm so sorry. But I'm sure that we have that connection. And then as far as my art goes, my visual art, sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes I get a download and I'm like, I gotta draw this. But sometimes I'll be on the train and there's like a watermark from somebody's boot from the rain. And I'm like, yo, that looks like this. Let me sketch it in my book and then let me paint it. Larice, where you came up with that? I don't know. I just saw a little thing on the floor, so sometimes it comes from nothing. Sometimes it comes from a download. Sometimes, I ask divinity to just download it, let me know what I gotta do next. What do people need to hear from me? One of my scary stories, actually all of the scary stories that I have on my podcast, there's elements of truth in them. There are things that actually happen to me in them, and then surrounding that could be just my imagination. Or I saw a dog on the train and I started writing a story about dogs, but then there's parts of that story that's true, So I think, when we talk about artists and people who are not artists, I feel like everybody's an artist. I feel like everybody has that part of themselves that wants to be expressed. And I think people who don't see themselves as artists can admire that in people who do.
Thank you. That was well said. I would like to caveat that a little bit of your artistic eyesight comes from our mom, for sure.
Oh yeah, so totally it's hereditary, because the culinary skills is also an art, and that's definitely, and it skipped a generation because our dad does not cook. He does not like it, and we love it. So, and that came from our paternal grandfather. Mm-hmm. Then we have my mom, who's the visual artist, and all our uncles. So on our mom's side, we have that visual art, and then she's also very expressive in her stories. So I'm sure our storytelling came from her drama.
Micheline.
Huh?
I was saying thank you, but Micheline.
Oh, yep.
What'd you call me? Yeah, actually, I have to kind of continue on with what you were saying, because I was thinking back in that I was very lucky that my mother saw my artistic ability, AKA my teachers were complaining because I was drawing all over everything. And rather than try to squash it, she actually tried to kind of harness that and get me into, programs and buying me paper and things like that. I still have the art table that she bought me. So, but for the different books that I've done, it's been a different inspiration. So like with Malice in Ovenland, a lot of people look at the cover and they say, is that you? And it's like, sort of. So, that was wanting to create a composite that could have an adventure the likes of which I never saw as a kid. And that was just a fantasy adventure. Like, why not, you know? And there's magic and there's creatures and, you know, she doesn't have special powers. You know, I figured it would be the kind of kid that was very approachable to young girls in particular, you know, young black and brown girls. They could see themselves in the adventure, you know. And I also took a lot of cues from this video game franchise called King's Field that came out for the PS1 and the PS2 because there's a lot of aspects to Ovenland that emulate some of their world maps. They're just deep and dark and windy and drippy and creepy and everything like that. With my latest Diary of a Mad Black Werewolf, my inspiration sadly just came from what it's like being black in America, you know, and constantly finding out on the media about the horrible things that are being done to black people, you know, combined with the kind of response you often see from law enforcement entities in the media, you know, and then of course other people, racist people on, you know, Facebook who just seem so happy to see it happen or happy to have something they could say, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, killing black people with impunity. And then, but you'll see someone say, but he was a felon, you know, he had a warrant out on it. It's like, that doesn't make it okay for someone to gun him down, you know, gun a person down. Okay. So that kind of rage, I guess it's kind of a love letter to that, you know, addresses police brutality, you know, Karens who can't mind their damn business, you know, all these different things, ICE, you know, coming in and detaining and arresting people who are actually going to the hospital for treatment because they're sick. You know, it's just ruthless. So that's the impetus for that. Werewolves have always been my favorite movie monster. Alien is number 2. Sorry, Alien. But it was a chance after doing all this kid-friendly stuff to be able to explore something that wasn't just like, you know, hey kids, you know, it was something that was dark and it was gritty and it was dirty and it was, you know, disgusting and empowering, you know, and you're kind of having a situation where bullets can't really hurt you, you know, they might just annoy you. And what do you do with that? I wonder. So yeah, I had a really good time exploring that. I did it for Inktober. So I took the prompt word list they released, and each prompt word is used in each section of the story for the 31 days. And then I ended up collecting it because people responded to it so well. I made it into a little book and I self-published it. With the Anansi Kids Club, which was one of my first comics, my inspiration was Afro-Caribbean folklore. My mom grew up on the island of St. Vincent. There were all kinds of mythos and monsters there. And one of them was the Sukinya, which is like a vampire, skinwalker of sorts. And so I told a story about these 3 kids who have this club, and they're trying to verify whether or not the woman in their village is a Sukinya, because they wear the skin of a person during the day and they look totally normal. And so that was something I really, really enjoyed. And I like having those themes of friendship and camaraderie in kids and independence and danger, but not situations where necessarily someone gets really badly hurt, you know what I'm saying, where you're just challenged as a kid. A sort of Miyazaki-esque kind of thing, minus Princess Mononoke, because that was a little bit upper level, but you know what I mean. I like Totoro. Yeah. So yeah, that's my inspirations. Food are also my inspirations. The comforts of home, having a place that's safe, you know, having parents that are there for you and care for you. And just having a place where Black children and brown children can see themselves in those adventures. I might have to move in a second, by the way, because I'm running out of power. So just hope nobody gets dizzy.
That's why I was late. I had to make sure everything was plugged in.
Jackie.
So I was like, prepárate, because I don't want you to get the glare when I try to show you something. You have to explain when I answer your questions with the actual photos. So listening to all of you, it's like, I hate that I'm not moderating, no offense, because I'm like, oh my God, I got questions for everybody too. But it's like a piggyback, because I'm like the last one, and I'm like, oh my God, I relate to all of you in different ways. So to pull it back a little bit and give you some background, I'm Puerto Rican and Greek. I grew up mainly with my Puerto Rican family. I have a big family. I have 2 older sisters that have, my father raised the 3 of us. They have 2 different biological fathers, but my dad was daddy. That was him, right? But I never got to know my Greek side of the family like that, because when my father passed away, I was kind of like in a weird place as a teenager and like beefing with that side of my family. So I went about 14 years without speaking to them. So my culture and my background is like mainly my Puerto Rican side. And I've seen so many different things where when I was growing up, I went through stuff I shouldn't have went through, but we all in different ways have. Like when my mother temporarily split from my father and remarried, we went to a different neighborhood where I'm mixed, but I'm not light enough for that neighborhood, right? It's like, who's this girl? Oh, like, you know, this Puerto Rican chick, she always does this and that, all the stereotypes flying out their mouth. Cool. But then I go to a different neighborhood and I'm in the middle. And it's always like, if I go to Georgia, oh, she's high yellow. So dealing with a lot of different cultural, colorist shit, racist shit, prejudice shit. It's crazy. And people don't understand, like, Puerto Ricans come from a descent of a different boat stop. Okay. Spain, Taino Indian, and African, right? And they're just like, oh, one Puerto Rican, and Cubans too. I don't know where everybody's from, but Cubans could be light-skinned, blue eyes, blonde hair.
Let them know, sis. Let
Cubans
them
can
know.
be light-skinned, blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever, right? But then you can also find a dark Cuban. My titi is your complexion, Luis. My mother is in between me and you. And then I have cousins that look like Sammy, and they look like Micheline, and they look like Regine. My whole family is like a giant mixture.
Girl, that's every Puerto Rican
Exactly.
family.
So imagine now that I have now also my father's family, and I have to deal with different things on that side. Like when I go with my uncle to the supermarket in New Jersey, I look like I've been kidnapped or I'm an escort. There's no in between. Is she being sex trafficked? What's going on? We don't look anything alike.
Jersey, I think anybody walking around down the street asks that question of any woman.
At this point, yes. But in general, it's such a contrast that I'm like, I have to feel like always on defense mode, which is partially where I'm going with this. Art imitates life. So when I was in junior high school, and I guess I'm going to share this with you to bring you into my world. First, I'm going to show you this so that you can then maybe think about why I'm showing this to you. What does this bring to your mind? Can you see?
Murky.
To me, that's a girl's first experience or a girl's first negative experience.
It looks like
Bingo.
terror.
Yes, bingo.
Fear.
Oh, all of that. So I titled this Rape. I was doing an art show where I'm like, okay, you know, last year I was doing my first solo exhibition. And I said to myself, where am I going to pull all this art from? I pulled all my drawings from my childhood that I was able to salvage. Whatever I could have left that wasn't thrown away or lost between moving. And I thought about the spine surgery I had, the shoulder surgery I had, losing my day job that was like my bread and butter because I like to pay my bills and have food too and have lights. Sammy. And my inspiration was always survival, if that could give you some background. So when I was going through that, I'm like, okay, I go through what I'm feeling. So a post-op selfie was a thing because I had surgery and I'm like, how am I feeling right now? I'm just trying to keep painting no matter what it is. This other one, I was going through something in a relationship and I felt like those are heartstrings because you can die from a broken heart. So basically this was never a finished piece, but I brought it out to my event. Another, because I've had about 12 surgeries by now, different reasons throughout my life. Where these are like medication labels and stuff like that that I implemented because it's mixed media. So this is a print of the actual piece, but that kind of gives you an idea of the shit that I go through. And then the other one, when my mother passed away, this perception is just me in 3 different places in time. So when she was in a coma because she had a heart attack and a stroke, and I got there, it's like I've always been the defensive or difficult child, I would say, or teenager. So at 21, I got there and I asked the doctor, you know, like, how's my mother doing? I look and to me, I'm just seeing she's knocked the fuck out. And I'm like, you know, and I'm sorry for cursing. I know family based. I get it. Sorry. It's going to slip once in a while. In case of any, as Micheline mentioned, some Karens pop out of nowhere and, you know, whatever. But when I tell a story, I'm very passionate about where I'm going with it. But that painting is also not finished. A lot of my work begins because I'm going through the trauma and I'm trying to like release it. And I say, I'll come back to it when I can. I got there and I asked the doctor what was going on with my mother. And I said, is she in a coma? And he said, I don't know. I said, you're a doctor. I'm not. I'm kind of telling you, I think so. Because the way they deem things in medicine is a little crazy. And he said, well, I can't tell you until it's been 24 hours of her not responding. So at that point, you know, the first entry to the room is like, hey, what's going on one side. Leaning over her in the bed is like, I'm watching, I'm trying to wait to see what's going to happen. And then the last part where I have my head down is essentially like when it happened. The minute I tried to go home, my aunt, you know, she came running out and said, it's happening now. Because I stood there for 2 days when I was asleep. So back to the red one. The red one, I was doing everything for my art show and I was testing out new oil paints. And when I smeared it, everything that happened in my childhood came back. Looking at it, I was like, the emotions that ran over me. I said, there's so many people in my family that don't even know. My parents died not knowing. But the one time that something happened to me, like you said, the first experience, a terrible terror, you know, a bad experience. I lost it in a way I didn't want to lose it. And that painting was so simple, but so deep that when I explained it in my show, a lot of people were like, oh my God. And then because they can relate to certain things that I mentioned, it becomes that thing where I'm like, I want to be for them what I needed for me. And provide that art therapy aspect and whatnot. Speaking on specific, tomorrow I'm on the photography panel, so I won't like dive so deep into that, but like more specifically about the art portion. A lot of it comes from me letting things out in my life, and there are happy things, but there are also a lot of traumatic things. So deconstructing trauma, I called it day 12,796 for that show because that's how many days I was alive dealing with that many possible things. If you count how many days you've been on this earth and you're like, shit, I had a bad day. These 4 things happened to me. And you start doing the math. You're like, damn, I've survived 12,796 days of shit. And I'm going to continue to do another 12,796 days. So that was kind of the basis of bringing my art to the public. And I feel like my art comes from a place that I'm like, if I'm not doing it, then I can't share this with the world. And I can't help other people who are possibly in need. I started a nonprofit, but I'm still in the midst because of COVID of, you know, doing paperwork. But I do try to reach out to people of all ages, adults and children, homeless, women in shelters and children, and try to help as much as I can. I often bring like all my art supplies out and I'll tell people like, they go, oh, I'm not an artist. Like you were saying, I'm not an artist. I can't draw. And I'm like, yeah, but can you write? Can you sit down and just write me a short story of something you haven't shared with somebody else to make yourself feel better? And you wouldn't believe the shit that I read. Excuse my language once again. Because like it's funny that everybody who writes to me, if I give them this book and I'm like, just write 2 sentences, something that you don't want to say out loud. Maybe you have social anxiety, maybe you're dealing with depression, which is another thing. Depression has many layers, and a lot of times it's a stigma in our communities to not talk about depression and mental health, so we don't know that that's what we're dealing with. So art is coming from like trying to battle all the different things that I couldn't understand and that I now do understand.
I'm sorry, Jackie. I wanna thank you guys again for sharing your inspiration and stories, because again, this is and even getting into that, talking about mental health, just to let people know there is a panel that is up to talk about dealing with COVID, the pandemic right now. And we want to give it up to another woman in power who is a powerhouse, Tachio Geek Girl, Natasha, who put that together. She works in that field. I want to thank you guys again for doing all this. We're going to come up with our next question. Tony is going to ask that because again, this is all inspiring, hearing each and everybody's background from, you know, what the world around them affects their work, their personal story, and then just having to go out there and make the money. It's that's what it is. Tony, take on the next question.
Yep. And I think with time, this is our last question,
Sebastian. Then we have one from the crowd, so we'll take this from the crowd, and then I'll ask the one that came from the crowd.
All right, awesome. So with all of your experience, what advice would you give to someone looking to get into the creative field? And we will start with Larice.
Do what brings you joy. Don't listen to nobody unless your heart is in it. And wake up every day and think about what you want to eat, sleep, and breathe. Think about what you would do if it didn't matter if you got paid to do it. And do that. When you put something out, don't feel like you have to put more out just to have something else out. Go with quality over quantity and really value yourself and your art. And do it only if it brings you joy. And surround yourself with people that bring you joy and delight in your successes. Because if you're surrounding yourself with people that are, I don't want to say jealous, but kind of off-putting when you're celebrating your accomplishments, then you don't need to be around those people. I need to be around people who are going to jump just as high as I'm going to jump when I'm successful. And that's the way I am as a friend, as an artist, as someone who supports people I love. When they jump, I jump too. And those are the types of people that you need to surround yourself with, because those are the types of people that are going to continue to inspire you. We've all been through trauma. We've all been through the dirt. We've all been through, stuff that doesn't align with who we are inside. Align yourself with who you are inside, and align yourself with the people that bring that out of you and support that in you. And then you will always be inspired.
Mm-hmm.
That's my advice to anybody trying to be an artist. You are an artist. You were born an artist. Just be who you were born to be.
Right on. And we'll go with Micheline.
Wasn't ready to unmute. I would say, if you're interested in becoming an artist and in doing, just do it. Basically, I know that sounds super cheesy. Don't wait though. Like, I lost a lot of time being like, no one will like my story. No. So don't do that. Write your stories. If you're a writer, write. If you are an illustrator, draw. If you are a little bit of both, do both. You can give yourself projects, or you can just write about anything. You can write about your character. You can draw your character, or you can, like, used to saying, have a squad, and bounce ideas around. And of course, if it's hard to find ways to practice, there's a lot of resources online where you can learn about anatomy, layout, how to set up a comic, why it's important to make your word bubbles a certain way, and best user practices. The Metropolitan Museum of Art has like over 100 books that are free to download, that you can learn about armor and weaponry and anatomy, and you can look at clothes, you can look at paintings, you can look at just about anything they have over there. Try to take inspiration from everything. Sometimes people make fun of me because they say, you're a lifetime New Yorker and you still walk around like a damn tourist. But I can't help looking at stuff. It's just, there's always something you never know what you're going to miss. So, and I'd say keep trying, sow the seeds, and yes, surround yourself with people who also feel the same way, and do something, practice every day. And you'd be surprised at the kind of body of work you can amass, and I mean, just like from doing Inktober, that's like 31 drawings. If you choose to do the prompt words every day. And now there's like a zillion different kinds of, tobers. There's Monster-tober and Dog-tober. People are doing all these different kinds of stuff. So you can find the one that works for you and just have a ball. And, you also can post yourselves on social media, and you can, have other friends discover you, other potential friends or connections, and, and you can find people who also inspire you to, push harder. That would be my advice. Tell your story in one way or the other.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll go with Jackie next.
Okay. So I feel like, again, because we're all thinking on the same, great minds think alike. I'm like, there's nothing that they haven't said that I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. Something that I would like to point out as my advice to somebody who's looking to be a creative in any way is don't be intimidated. Don't feel like, oh my God, there's someone better than me, so why would somebody care about what I'm doing? Because the thing is that no one's going to do it the way you're going to do it. And although it may be different, it might be something that everybody has a network and everyone has a lane. There was a time when I was modeling that I'm like, I would be considered like an urban model or a plus size model. But I'm like, I'm not plus size. I wasn't at the time the size that they're saying. I was like somewhere in between. And I'm like, yeah, but somebody wants me to do it because I'm getting paid. It's very important to understand that when you have no budget, because I came from a place where I'm like, if I don't have the means, I find out how to do the thing. You have to teach yourself the same thing that you're asking other people to do for you. That way, when you don't have the money to hire somebody, you can at least kind of like suffice in the meantime. Barters are important. If you're talented at something and somebody else is talented at something, you can say, hey, I'll be like, Micheline, I need you to help me do a voiceover. Even though you didn't mention that you do that, I just hear your voice. If I say like, you know, I'm going to write a script and I have something to do, I need you to do this character for me. And in return, I'll go ahead and I'll proofread something that you wrote, you know, like just something. Barter, create the bond and the relationship that you want with other creatives. Like it's important to network. That's something that I would say to everybody in every career. It's very important that you network at all times. If you know that there's a con or a conference or a panel or whatever, attend that shit. Excuse my language again. Attend that ish, you know, and if you can't attend it, they put the people who were speakers on the website all the time. Do not be afraid to look up the panelists and stuff like that. If you miss something, you're like, damn, I can't afford to go to Comic-Con or A3C or Art Basel. That's a lot of money. That's a flight. That's a hotel. I can't do it because I don't have the money. All right. Look up the panelists. Look up all of us, right? DM us. You never know. A person's going to answer you. They might be very helpful. And they might say, okay, well, here's like a recap of everything that happened. You were saying to learn as much as you can. I agree. Because I give myself challenges and I try to learn every day. I don't think that I've fully mastered anything because I'm still going. And I always make it a point to tell people, like, you're not done. Just because somebody likes something that you did doesn't mean that you have to stop working hard. You have to continue working hard until the end. Budgets, once again, when it comes to things that you need, if you can take anything and turn it into a tool, that's your talent. If you draw or you paint or whatever, you're like, I can't afford oil paint. That's very expensive. Go get you some watercolors and do something with watercolor. If you have to illustrate, you're like, I can't afford those Sakura markers and stuff like that. Go get you some fine point Sharpies or a 003, you know, in any kind of pen, the pencil, whatever. Go with what you can. Create with what you have is kind of my advice. And find yourself a mentor. Everybody needs a mentor. Everybody needs someone that they can kind of like bounce their projects off of and be like, you know, I created this. How do you feel about it? What do you think that I can do better? You know, you have to be open to criticism because art is subjective. Everything is subjective. Music is subjective, just everything. And that's probably all because I feel like you all touched on everything that I would have said, but that's my main advice.
Thank you. Regine.
Well, everyone just basically touched on everything. I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to add to it? But I co-sign on all of it. I think what I can add to it though is that whatever you want to do, immerse yourself in it. When I first started getting into comics, like I read everything that I could about writing comics. And I looked up comic book scripts and looked at the different styles. So if that's something that you're passionate about, you immerse yourself in it, you practice, you know, you try to write every day, something that I don't often adhere to, but you know, I'm telling y'all it is really helpful. It is really helpful because when I was writing often, it definitely helped to strengthen my skill set. I would also say that whatever it is that you're currently doing, even if it's something that you're not necessarily passionate about, or it is in line with what you're passionate about, all your different skill sets can help you build upon your passion and what you love, and you can bloom in that. And you know what? And make some money. Don't we want to make money too? Like you know, you can do that as you're building yourself, you're building your brand. So always keep your mind on how to educate yourself, how to strengthen your skill set, and how to use your current skill set to build on what you're looking to do. So that's my advice.
Cool. Awesome. And Sammy.
Save the harshest for last.
Yes. Lay it on us, Sammy.
So what I tell all of my students that, you know, and my husband and I have had quite a few over the years. The first thing I always tell them is do today what others won't, so tomorrow you can do what others can't. A lot of artists nowadays rest on their the ability of this fantastical idea of it'll come to me if I'm inspired. And when they want to be an illustrator in my industry, it doesn't happen like that. You need to be able to draw on command. I've spent over 20,000 hours mastering my craft. That's why I'm as good as I am. And I tell others, put the work in. Don't have a thick skin, because you're going to get an editor that says, this sucks. Why did I hire you? They're not going to be nice about it. Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. They're going to tell you what sucks, and then you have to go fix it. The other thing I tell them is, this is where the harsh part, I can teach any monkey to draw. I can't teach any monkey to sell. I always tell my students to go take business courses, because most artists, it doesn't matter how talented you are, they suck at selling. They can't sell themselves. They have no personality, and they sit staring at their drawing table. I can walk down Artist Alley, and literally in every row, 90% of the people don't say hi. I see the top of their head, and they glance up, or they're on their phones. And that is terrible. You're not a working artist in this day and age if that's how you treat business. I call myself a businesswoman that makes art, because first and foremost, I'm a business. It's making art and I love it. But my first and foremost thing is, okay, how am I making money with this piece that is sitting on my table? Learning your fundamentals is like absolutely one of the things I beat into my students. 10,000 skulls, 5,000 hands, thousands of 30-second gesture drawings, because most artists nowadays, they see the people breaking the rules, and the people that are breaking the rules are the comic book artists or the anime artists or the mangaka or those people that they love and aspire to be. But the problem is those people learn their fundamentals, and then they chose to break the rules to create their style. I wouldn't study, if I wanted to draw like Frazetta, I wouldn't study Frazetta. Frazetta is a copy. Frazetta is a copy of Caravaggio and N.C. Wyeth. So why would I study a copy when I should study the masters? On a solid art history foundation and knowing the history of your craft is something I always tell my students to learn. Because again, people look at Frazetta's work and they're like, that's amazing. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, but he didn't do it. That's not his origin story, And I could continue on, but the last thing I tell my students, which is one of the more important things, is, you're going to come into this industry and you have to this industry is not a job. It's not even a career. It's a life. Every aspect of my life deals with my art. And when I bring my students in, I don't just teach them to draw well or how to make prints or how to edit or whatever. I teach them how to live a life as an artist, how to survive when there's no conventions, how to survive when work's not coming in. What do you do? How do you make money? And I tell them the first thing you have to learn as an artist, and you want to live this life, is you need to live this life with courage, character, and conviction. Otherwise, you're going to fall to the wayside, and you're never going to make any sort of name for yourself, whether it's in a small community or a big community. That's my 2 cents.
I knew there was a reason you saved last.
Fantastic.
Well done.
Now,
you guys did amazing.
Now, I know we went a little over the time limit that we said. I do want to touch up on this question. We'll do a little bit time limit, give you guys give you a few seconds to answer it, because again, it is a good question. But again, I thank you guys for doing this panel, because these are the nuggets we want. That's the type of information we want, the backstory that you guys have given, and that inspiration that you can give to others, as well as that advice, because people do need to hear that. But the question is that, and this was asked in the chat, do your heroes inspire you, or has that changed? And I want to start with Sammy.
Sure. My heroes definitely inspire me. One of my biggest heroes is my late husband. He died of kidney failure because of diabetes, and he was hooked up to at-home dialysis for a year. So he was literally dying, hooked up to dialysis, still drawing and painting. And if there was a man that ever lived that had courage and conviction, it was that man. And I mean, of course, your heroes, as you get older, though, your heroes will change. And that's okay, because you're not the same person that you were 5 years ago. And if your heroes stay the same, that's okay too. Maybe you'll get new ones. But heroes are one of those things where I have met lots of my heroes, and the comment "never meet your heroes" is 100% accurate. What I would say is, for your heroes, if you want to meet them and they turn out to be awesome, great. Most of my heroes, aside from 2 or 3, have all been giant a-holes. I lost my inspiration of them, and I was really disappointed. But in the same token, I learned from them that that's not the person I want to be. When I have students and I have fans running up to me, crying and talking about how I inspired them, I'm not going to be an a-hole. So heroes, whether good or bad, do inspire you, but take them as lessons. Don't take them as an example of how you should live your life. Take aspects of what specifically of them inspires you and incorporate it in your own way. Don't copycat, because you're not them. As much as I love my husband and he inspires me and is my hero, I'm not Tommy Castillo, and I will never be Tommy Castillo. There's only one Tommy Castillo, and that's a dog ear or a cat ear on your thing. I got distracted by the furry animal in Micheline's photo. But yeah, so yes, my heroes inspire me, but I continue to evolve with my heroes, and get new heroes as I continue to evolve as a person and an artist.
We will go next with Regine.
My heroes definitely inspired me, and currently they haven't changed. One of my heroes, I mentioned her earlier, is Aletha E. Martinez, and she never disappoints. Mainly because she comes from the school of you put in the work and you make it happen. Whether you're sick or you're well, you get it done. And despite all the various adversities throughout the years, she make it do what it do. And I love having her on panels and her talking to the new generation of artists and creators, because she is an inspiration. I mean, she practices what she preaches. Like, most of the time, all she does is work. And on the flip side, for me, she's my hero, but she's also my friend. And I say, you still need to take care of yourself and rest. Like, self-care is a thing, and it's so important for you to do it. And then she'll look at me and say, well, you need to do the same thing. So she is a number one, like one of my heroes, and she continues to be, again, because of her own convictions. And honestly, like, most of the members of Wink are my heroes because they continue to push as far as they can go. It's like whatever they can do for themselves, for their home, for their community, they do it. On top of the work of just trying to make ends meet, they're always putting themselves out there, and that inspires me to do the same. And as of late, like, I'm doing more work outside of my own company. I'm doing more freelance writing and such, mainly because out of necessity, because people got to eat, but also because it's very important that I practice what I preach and put myself out there and brand myself and say, hey, this is my work. My work is pretty awesome. And so, yeah, like, my heroes definitely keep me inspired. And I'm so glad it hasn't changed. No a-holes over here.
We're going to go down to Jackie. So again, we're running short.
I just learned how to mute my mic, so I was like, give me a second. Because the whole time everybody was talking before, I'm like, I wonder if they're hearing all these different noises. I'm so sorry. Listening to everything that you guys are saying, I do agree with a lot. Sammy says something very important, only take the things that are basically positive from the person that is your hero, right? I personally have a whole issue with calling anybody my hero. I don't know why. I like to just, because it's so many people inspire me. There is no one person that I'm like, oh, this is my idol. The words hero and idol to me are very like blanket statement. I don't know if I sound like a shitty person for saying that, but for me, I can't say. Like, I love Mary J. Blige. Like, I'm listening to her music when I'm a child, in 4th grade, screaming, singing out the window, like I got my heart broken, not even understanding, right? But I felt that shit in my soul. And her music had gotten me through so much, but I won't call her my hero and I won't call her my idol. I'll definitely say she inspires me because I watched like her career and her life as a human being. A lot of the people in my immediate circle inspire me because if I see them struggling to a point, but they're still doing something, I'm like, oh, then I have no excuse. There are a lot of people that I meet and they're indie or they're major. And sometimes you do, like Sammy was saying, meet an a-hole that you're like, why are you like this? I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. I'm just trying to catch a vibe real quick. And you're shutting me down. If I ask you for a photo or I ask you for your signature or something like that, your autograph. See, I don't even ask for autographs. That's why I'm like signature. Because I don't. It's like something that means something to me is them giving me their ear and their time and their like the mentorship, right? So if I meet another graffiti artist when I'm at Art Basel, I'm like, oh my God, can you throw a piece in my book or whatever? Because I'll have that to the dawn of time. I appreciate everything and I'll hold on to it and cherish it. Having a conversation with you will be in the back of my head for the rest of my life until I get dementia or until I write it in my journal or something like that. But to think I live my life by looking at somebody and being like, that's my hero and I can't do this without them, I haven't found that yet. And maybe it's just me. But I do have a lot of inspiration that I pull from different directions and people tell me that I inspire them. So it's like a full circle. So if I surround myself with people who feel good to me, then I can continue doing what I'm doing.
We will go with Maysaline.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. I liken it less to a looking up or having heroes and more to it being a sort of Lord of the Ringsian kind of affair, you know, where you're trying to get to the crack of doom and drop the one ring down there. And, you know, that could, of course, be like keeping your Wi-Fi going, you know, maybe your journey is just trying to, get the rent paid or, enjoy some kind of little small luxury. I don't know. Those people that are alongside you, when I first met Regine, I think it was in a not a woman in comics, on a Drink and Draw Like a Lady. Yeah. And that was around Mocha. And, it was like we instantly just clicked. And I was just like, wow, there's other, back then it was, of course, I'm very introverted, but even then I was still just getting into comics. And it was like, other women make comics too? I make comics. So, that was really, and she was super cool. And it was like, wow, another Black woman who's doing all this stuff in comics. Oh my God. I was like, Dear Diary, today I met. So it's those people who are with you along the way and encourage you, who don't say like, why are you doing that? Or, what are you going to do with that? It's people who, it's like your squad, and your squad in real life or your squad in social media, you kind of uplift each other, it's like that, like Final Fantasy, kind of like everybody doing their summons, trying to make, these things happen and get their stuff out. And yeah, that's kind of more of what I like in it too, an adventure.
Again, we're going to have Laurice take us home.
And I'm going to take you home with a song. There's a hero. If you look inside yourself, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. And taking it back to what everybody was saying, I totally agree with finding your squad, your tribe, whatever you want to call it, the people surrounding you. And if it doesn't work, let it go. That to me is the big, like my siblings are my hero. Okay. Even before my parents, my siblings are my hero. Cause they're the ones that are going to be like, yeah, do that. Nah, chill. Like they're going to give me the real deal. My parents are always going to be like, that's great. Do whatever you want. We love you. My siblings are going to tell it to me straight. And they're going to give me the tate quieto if I'm not doing it right. So really my family, my squad, and my tribe, the people that are surrounding me. Like I could look at any artist and be like, damn, yo, I want to be like that person, or that person is like my god, a hero or idol or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're not right within, how you gonna win? You know what I mean? Like, you got to be your own hero, and you got to decide who's around you that's gonna be the tribe that's a part of you being your own hero. That's why I really vibe with what Jackie, right? With what Jackie was saying. Like, I really have an issue with people being, that's my idol, that's my hero. Be your own fucking hero. Sorry, be your own hero.
It's all good. It's
I didn't
all
say
good.
that.
Bombs were rated R now.
But I agree with y'all. You know, I mean, you could meet people that you feel like are your idol, and they could be negative or positive. But at the end of the day, who is your tribe? Who are the people that are gunning for you, that are going to ride for you? Is it you? Because if you're not doing it yourself, how do you expect anybody else to do it for you? So again, I don't know about this like hero stuff. You know what I mean? I watch Marvel comics and DC comics. They cool, you know. Those are cool heroes. But there's heroes in all of us. There's heroes in my mom who suffered from pistol whipping while holding my sister as an infant. Like, she survived that. That's a hero, bro. Like, if that's not a hero, I don't know what is. So for me, it's like my family, my tribe, my squad. These three men right here, those are my squad. That's my tribe. Yes, I love y'all. I feel like you decide that. You decide who is your hero, who inspires you from day to day, from hour to hour, from year to year, and it could change. But just make sure that the hero in you does not.
I want to thank you guys again. This is a moment in history because you guys are pioneers to one of the first virtual panels here in Beyond Con. You guys are Titans. Actually, I'm still nervous doing this panel. You guys are awesome. All 5 of you guys, and you guys are inspiration. Thank you again.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, we have all their links, social medias. Please follow them, give them like, check out their stuff. Sammy's going to do a live drawing coming up, and you can also find everyone's store. Yeah, it's literally coming next. But again, thank you guys for everything. Thank you. And
Thank
everybody,
you very much.
Thank you.
enjoy and Beyond
Having
Con.
us.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.